Now let's see how you can define the state and how you can modify the state and how you can use the latest hooks, useEffect and useState, right? How you can implement various lifecycle methods using the latest lifecycle, using the latest hook, useEffect, right? So let me start adding the state. So first thing is, how do you define the state in the latest way using the React hooks? So it is very simple. You have use state hook. So there is a use state hook which you need to import from the React. Okay. And you call this function. So you call this hook inside the React component, and this React hook returns two values to you. That is the state variable and a function to change that variable. So useState hook basically returns two things in the form of array. So here we are doing array destructurization, right? So you are destructurizing this array, and the first element in the array is the state variable itself, and the second value inside the array is a function to change that value, right? So basically it is giving us two values. First value is the state variable, right? And the second value is the function to change the variable. Perfect. And the other important thing is that whatever you pass in the argument of useEffect will be the default value. So let me define a state variable logged in. Okay. And the function name, it can be anything. You don't have to specifically name it as set logged in. It's just that you are accessing the first and second elements in the array using the array destructurization. So I'm naming it to the meaningful, so that logged in and set logged in, and whatever value you pass inside the arguments of useState, it will be the default value of the state variable. That is, the default value of logged in will be false. So argument passed to the useState hook acts as default value, right? So these are the three things with respect to useState hook. Okay, so let me create a button for you. Okay, let me create a button, and this button basically displays login and logout in the form of toggle. So if the user is in logged in state, it displays the button text displays as logout, and if the user is in logout state, the button text displays as logged in. So now how can I access the state variable inside my function? It is very simple. So no more this and no more that over here. So in the class components, if you remember, you used to define and you used to access this dot state dot the property name, right? Now it is pretty clean. So if logged in is true, then the button text will be logout, and if the logged in is false, then the button text will be login, right? So if you see here now in the UI, it's login, and now we need to add the on-click event handler to change the value. But before doing that, let's see the exact replica of this in the form of class, just to compare, right? So class main extends react dot component. Okay, it has render method, and this render method will return the HTML content same as this, and in the constructor we define the state, right? So constructor receives the argument props and super props, and this dot state is equal to logged in and false. So this dot state dot, so how do you access state in the class based components? This dot state dot logged in. So both of these are same now, but what is the difference is that in case of class based components, you have only one function, that is set state, which can be used to change any value. It means technically the state inside the class-based components is just an object, but here the state can be anything. It can be object or anything. So you can define multiple states as well. So multiple variables as well. It means I can say superheroes, right? Set superheroes. Okay, so I'm defining another state value, useState. So this will be an object. So here it can be anything. It can be Boolean or it can be anything. So technically what is this is nothing but having like this superheroes an object. Okay, so in the functional components, the useState hook can be called any number of times. It means you can define any number of state variables, or else you can declare a single useState function. You can call single useState function with an object, and you can store all the data inside that object as well. So it both way it works. So this is the exact replica of the class and the functional components, and how do you use the state, right? So let me add few heroes over here, right? So superheroes, Marvel heroes, and DC heroes. Okay, so let me copy from my clipboard. Yeah, so let me copy the Marvel heroes, and then I'll copy the DC heroes, right? So yeah, cool. So now I have two state variables in my function, that is logged in and the other is superheroes. Okay, so how do you change the state variable? So using the second argument, as which is a function, right? So I'll add an on-click event handler over here, and when the on-click event is executed or it is fired, I'll change set logged in to whatever the value currently it is, right? Set logged in and set logged in, that's it. So when the button is clicked, I'm changing the login status to the toggle. So I'm adding this exclamation so that it toggles between the state. So now if I see the UI, right, I refresh it. So login and logout, login, logout, login, logout. So changing the state is now just calling this function, right? Now let me add another component to display the list of heroes. Okay, so constant list component is equal to, so it basically iterates over the data which has been passed in the props. Okay, so UL, and we will be passing the superheroes list inside this. So props dot heroes dot map and element, and here we'll display the li element and accessing the element using the flower brackets. So basically list component will be displaying Marvel heroes if it is in the logged in state, and if it is in logout state, then it will be displaying DC heroes. So let's add the same logic here. So heroes will be equal to, if logged in, then superheroes of Marvel. If it is logged in, then I am sending the data of the Marvel heroes. So if the logged in is true, then I am assigning heroes as Marvel heroes, and if it is logged out, then I will assign DC heroes, right? So that's it. So since you are not setting up or changing the superheroes anymore, you can remove this function because you are not using it, right? Now if I see in the UI, so in the login, so when you are logged out, you are seeing the DC heroes, right? And when you are logging in, you are seeing the Marvel heroes. So that is what expected. So handling state using the useState hook is very simple. Okay, let's add more functionalities to understand how you can change or how you can modify the state. Okay, so I'll add another button. I'll add another button to sort the heroes. Okay, this button will sort so this button, what's wrong? Something is wrong. Yeah, so this button will sort Marvel heroes. Okay, so basically what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to change the values inside this object. So how I can do that, right? So I would need this set superheroes function to change it, and I'll have another button to change the DC heroes, right? So both on the on clicks of this, what I can do is on click set superheroes so superheroes basically requires to be sorted now. So when the sort Marvel heroes is clicked, you need to sort the Marvel heroes, right? But remember, the set state function or the set superheroes function here, if you just return like this, Marvel heroes of superheroes of Marvel dot sort. So if you do this, if you set like this, what used to happen in the class based components, it used to append the data but not overwrite. But here in the React hooks, it works in a different way. So if you do this, what will happen is DC heroes will be completely deleted. So in the superheroes, I mean in this useState hook, you cannot override. I mean you cannot append the data. So whatever you are sending in this object will be the final object in the state value, right? So yes, so in this useState hook, when you are setting the state and if you are not appending all of the values, so when I do this, what will happen is the DC heroes will be completely deleted because we are replacing the entire object with only the sorted array of the Marvel heroes. So what is a good practice? It is always good practice to spread the object so that you are not changing any of the other values but only changing the intended values. Similarly, on the on click of this, on the on click of the other button, you do the same thing. So it will be now DC heroes, right? DC heroes. That's it. So now whenever, so it is, the concept is similar. Whenever there is a state change, the component will re-render, right? So whenever there is a state change, the component will re-render. Now if you go to the UI, right, so something happened. I don't see any of the values. So let's see what is wrong in the console. It says too many re-renders. React limits the number of re-renders to prevent the infinite loop. So something is happening. Yeah, so on click, yes, we need. So what's the problem is this on click, though the on click has not been occurred, you are changing the state again and again. So what technically it should be, you should pass a function over here, not the function body. So that was the problem. So I need to pass a function reference, anonymous function reference. then it will work as expected. Otherwise, what it is happening is it is continuously setting the change and re-rendering, continuously setting the change and re-rendering because it is calling the function itself. Now it is good. Okay, so login, on the login I am seeing the Marvel heroes, and on the logout I am seeing the DC heroes, right? So when I click on the sort Marvel heroes, right, when I click on this, currently I am seeing the DC heroes, I'll click on the sort DC heroes. So now the array has been sorted. Aquaman has come on the top. And when I click on the sort Marvel heroes, see, though the sort Marvel heroes is, but the UI is not changed because it is not being displayed. But I'll click on the login, then I can see the sorted array of the Marvel heroes. So if I refresh again, so in the login, first I am seeing the DC heroes with the Superman at the top. And when I'm logging in, I am seeing the Spider-Man as the top. Okay. I'm sorting it. And then I can see the Ant-Man. Similarly, sorting the DC heroes, then I can see the Aquaman. So changing the state. So what is the main agenda over here is how do you change the state? So one thing which you need to remember is set state in useState hook doesn't append the data by the object you pass. Instead, it replaces the entire object. It replaces the entire object. So please be careful about this, right? So if by mistake, if you send the single object by doing, instead of doing this spreading of superheroes, then you will lose the DC heroes completely. So let me show you that, right? So I'm not doing the dot 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 over here, and I'm also not doing the dot 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 over here, right? So now if I go to my UI, right, first I can see both of the login and logout. In both of these cases, I can see the DC heroes and the Marvel heroes. But when I click on the sort Marvel heroes, what will happen? I'm just returning the Marvel heroes, and I'm not caring about the DC heroes. So see, in the login status, I'm sorting the Marvel heroes. So everything worked fine. But when I click on the logout, I don't see the DC heroes because the DC heroes array has been replaced, and you can see cannot read properties of undefined, right? So it is a very good point to be noted, right? You need to always do the spread of the other keys in your state so that you are not replacing the complete state. Okay, so this is all about useState. Now let's see the useEffect hook. Okay, so now let's see the useEffect hook. So useEffect is a replacement. useEffect is a replacement to the life cycle methods. Okay, so useEffect is used for handling the side effects inside the component. So basically to perform any backend action, backend API calls, and all of these actions like handling the events and changing the state from changing the state based on the other events or whatever it is, right? So let's see how you can define the useEffect hook. useEffect, okay, and useEffect takes first argument as the callback function, so which will be executed on every render, okay, and it takes another argument which is the dependencies array, right? So what is the basic way of defining the useEffect? It is this. So useEffect, and it takes first argument as the callback function. So on each render, this function will be called, and the second element is the array, dependency array. We'll see what is the dependency array, right? So if I do console.log hello, right, and if I go back to my code, right, so see, the useEffect will be called every time. Yeah. See, first hello. I'll say what happened when I pass an empty array. But yeah, then again hello. So whenever the state change happens, the use effect will call, because whenever the render happens, the use effects will be called again and again. But now we will see different types of use effects which are present, right? So there are three cases in the use effect. How you are going to use it, totally up to you. So the first case, right? Use effect without dependency array. Okay, so use effect basically takes two arguments, one callback function, two dependency array, right? So use effect case 1 is use effect without dependency array. Case 2, use effect with dependency array but empty array, right? So this is another case. And case 3, use effect with dependency array on the values which it is depending on. Okay, so let me cover all of this, and I'll also explain how each case is mocking, or how each case is reciprocating the lifecycle methods which we had in class-based components, right? So first case, use effect without the dependency array. So in this case, it is going to be called on every render. So this is both component did mount / component did update. So in this case, it is acting as both component did mount. It means it is going to work on the first render, and also it is going to be called on every update as well. So whenever there is a state change, when you define a use effect without any dependency array, so it acts as both component did mount in the mounting phase, and in the same use effect will act as component did mount in the updation phase. Right? So this is the first case where it acts as both component did mount and component did update. And the second thing is use effect with empty array, right? Use effect with empty array. In this case, it acts as component did mount only. So what is happening? If you define a use effect with an empty array, that will be called only once in the lifetime. It won't be called in the update phase. So if you see console.log hey and console.log hello, so this hello will be printed only once, because this will be acting as a component did mount, right? So see, you got hey and hello. So the first one will be acting as both component did mount and component did update. In the mounting phase, it is component did mount, and in the update phase, it is component did update. When I update my state, right, like this, only the first one is called. The second one is not called. So use effect with empty dependency array is nothing but the component did mount, right? So whatever logic you used to do in the component did mount, you can implement this kind of use effect, and any component can have any number of use effects. There is no limitation for it. Okay, And the last case is useEffect with the dependency array. useEffect with the dependency array. So what is this dependency array? So if you want to execute this useEffect only when some value changes. Let me repeat again. So if you want to execute a side effect only when certain value changes, right? So like this. Right now, what I'll do is whatever buttons I have kept for changing or sorting the superheroes, I'll remove all of these buttons, and now I will use this use effect. So whenever the logged in value has changed, I will set another state variable heroes. Okay, set heroes. Okay, use state. This will be an empty array in the beginning. Okay, so this will be an empty array, and whatever logic I am applying over here, now I'll remove it and I'll directly pass the heroes object. Okay, directly I'll pass the heroes object and I'll use the safe notation to read the elements. Okay, now what am I trying to do is whenever the logged in value is changed, I have registered a callback, or I have registered a use effect. Okay, so based on that, if logged in is equal to true, then set heroes to superheroes of Marvel, right? Else set heroes to superheroes of DC, right? So now see, this already started throwing some warning. Says React use effect has a missing dependency. So it is saying this use effect is actually depending on not only logged in but also superheroes. So it is asking us, it is just a warning, it is asking us either include it or remove the dependency array. You can also replace multiple use state variables with useReducers if use set heroes needs the current value of superheroes. So it is ultimately saying that if your use effect is depending on the state property superheroes, then add it to the dependencies. So whenever superheroes or logged in, either of these, it is an OR operation. So either of these two state values change, then this use effect will be called. Okay, so in the first case, I'll show this. So when the logged in status changes, right? When this logged in status changes, I'll put a console.log logged in and logged in, right? So let me refresh it again. Yes. So first the logged in is false, and when I'm changing the login status, so see, automatically the heroes which are getting displayed is changed, right? So what happened? So what happened is this use effect was called on the first render and set the heroes property to DC because of the default value. So here it acted as component did mount. Okay, and in the second render it is a combination of should component update and component did update. So what is it doing? It is checking, okay, either of these values are changed or not. Then only, if either of these values are changed, then only you call this use effect. So use effect with a dependency array, it means that it is going to be called only when the dependency values changes. Only when the dependency values changes. So this is one of the three use cases of useEffect, when you can use them whatever case you need, and you can control the rendering of your application. So useEffect, and you have the useEffect without dependency array, useEffect with the dependency array, and useEffect with dependency array and some values in which it is depending on. So these are React hooks for you, right? Both useState and useEffect hooks. Now we'll understand what are the rules of React hooks, right? So the first React hooks rule, right? The first React hooks rule is that always call hooks at the top level. What does this mean? Okay, and the second second rule of hooks is call hooks in either React components or custom hooks, right? So either you call it inside React components or custom hooks. Second rule is pretty clear. You can use it inside a React component only, but the first one you need to understand. Okay, so the first one says that you cannot call a hook. You cannot call a hook inside a condition like this. If logged in is equal to true, then only call this hook. So this is wrong. You cannot do this. So see, it is automatically throwing an error saying React hook useEffect is called conditionally. React hook must be called in the same exact order in every component render. So what is it saying is you cannot do this. You cannot call the React hooks in a condition, and I'll explain why is that a very important thing. If you want to do any such actions, like you want to call this hook only when the logged in value is something, then the logged in value is true, or it is something else, whatever. So whatever it is, if you want to do, you can apply the conditions inside of the callback function. But calling the hook itself inside the condition is bad. Why? Because in React hooks, or when the React hooks are registered, what React internally does is it stores the order of execution of React hooks. So let's say this is hook 1. So I'll put it as h1, and this is h2 and h3, and this h4, and this h5, and this h6. So there are 6 hooks in the entire component. So what React does internally is, it is so dumb, React is so dumb that it stores the order of execution like this: h1, h2, and h3, and h4, and h5, and h6. So it stores the order of execution of these React hooks, and on every render, it stores all of these functions and blindly calls those. So it is so dumb that it doesn't even care which hook is on top, and you cannot even change the hook's order also. So it keeps the hook's order in its place, okay, and it calls the each hook one by one and on every render. So it calls each hooks one by one according to the order it has registered. So when you first registered the hooks, it remembers the order and it expects that order on every render. Hence, if you apply any conditions, then like this, if hook 3 is applied on any condition, it means on the third render, if hook 3 shouldn't be called, React would never know. React would never know because it has stored the execution order on the time of registering the component itself. So as long as that component is present on the browser window, React is expecting that hook will be called. But if you want to apply any logic, any conditional logic that you want to call the hook only when certain value is true or whatever condition it is, so you can place that logic inside the callback function, but not placing the useEffect hook itself in the condition. So this is the meaning of this. Always call hooks at the top level, but don't place them in conditions. And the reason is hook remembers the order of execution of hooks at the time of registering the component itself. So this is very, very important, guys, right? So this is all about hooks. Okay, so we try to cover the basic concepts of React hooks and how we can use effect and uh, use state hooks, right? You can make any number of API calls. You can put this function as async and await, and you can make the API calls, right? And you can fetch the data from anywhere. So that's all about React hooks and the basic concepts of React hooks. Okay, we'll be seeing more about how to write a custom React hook and etc. But yeah,